Hey everyone, ready to dive into better sleep? We're all looking for those practical tips, right?
Absolutely. And I think you'll be surprised what we found in the Health Buzz podcast episode on sleep hygiene.
Yeah, so many good tips. But we're going to break it down even further. Not just what to do, but like the WHY behind it?
Exactly. And sometimes the science is pretty cool.
Totally. So first things first, I guess, what is sleep hygiene? I feel like a lot of people think it's just like having clean sheets,
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Well, maybe not the sheets part specifically, but that idea of creating an environment that helps you sleep well consistently.
like the Health Buzz podcast host said. It's about those consistent habits, right? Setting yourself up for success every night.
You got it.
Okay, so their first tip was sticking to a consistent sleep schedule. I feel like we all know we should do this, but
That's tough.
it is. Why is it so important, though?
So it's not just about being disciplined. It's about working with your body's natural sleep-wake cycle, like that circadian rhythm we hear about.
Right, right.
Even shifting your wake-up time by an hour can mess things up. Your alertness, your thinking even.
Seriously. Wow. So the podcast host said, if you want to wake up at 7 a.m., you got to be in bed by 11:00 p.m. What about weekends?
Oh, yeah, that's the tricky
I
part.
love sleeping in on Saturdays.
I hear ya. But even though it feels like you're catching up, you're actually messing with your sleep rhythm. The podcast, they said to try a short nap instead if you need it.
Hmm. So, no sleeping till noon, even if it feels amazing.
Pretty much. A little nap is better for your sleep in the long run.
Okay. Noted. Next tip was creating a relaxing bedtime routine, like signaling your body it's time to chill.
Love this one. It's so important to transition from that go, go, go state to a more relaxed one, right?
The podcast host said their friend uses lavender candles and stretching. I'm a hot bath person myself. What about you?
Oh, yeah. I like to read.
Yeah.
But like a physical book, not a screen. That blue light messes with your melatonin production.
No, that's right. Melatonin is that sleep hormone, right?
Yep.
So yeah, dim lights and a paper book, it's like telling your brain, okay, time to wind down.
Makes sense. I've got to stop scrolling on my phone before bed. Okay, so the podcast also talked about optimizing your sleep space. They called it a sleep sanctuary, which I kind of love.
Yeah, making it like a haven for sleep.
So what makes a good sleep sanctuary? They mentioned cool, dark, and quiet. Anything else?
Well, they recommended blackout curtains to block out any light. And for noise, a white noise machine can help. Like drown out anything distracting.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
I actually got a new mattress recently, and it's helped so much. I wake up feeling way more rested.
A good mattress is key for sure. It's not just about comfort, it's about supporting your body properly too.
Totally. But yeah, darkness is key. Even with the best mattress in the world, any light can mess with your sleep.
True, true.
Okay, so we've got a consistent routine, a relaxing wind down, and our sleep sanctuary is coming together. But what about, food and drinks? The podcast had some tips about being mindful of what you consume before bed. We all know to avoid caffeine, but what about food? So it's all about your body's natural rhythms. Eating a big meal right before bed isn't great because your digestive system's still working hard when it should be winding down. And alcohol, even though it might make you feel sleepy at first, it can actually disrupt your sleep later on.
Ah, sneaky alcohol. They suggested chamomile tea or warm milk. Why are those good?
Both of them have stuff that can help you relax. Chamomile has this antioxidant called apigenin that might make you sleepy. And warm milk has tryptophan, and that helps your body make serotonin and melatonin. You know, those sleep hormones we talked about.
Oh, right. Okay, so on to tip number 5. Limiting those daytime naps. I am so guilty of this.
Naps are a double-edged sword, right? They can be good if you're strategic about it, but a long nap too late in the day can mess with your nighttime sleep.
The Health Buzz host had this funny story about taking a nap at 5:00 p.m. and then being up until 2:00 a.m. Total sleep schedule flip.
Yeah, exactly. The podcast recommended keeping naps short, 20 minutes max, and before 3:00 p.m., just a little recharge, not a full sleep session.
Okay, I got to work on my nap strategy for sure. Now, before we wrap up this part, I wanted to touch on something the podcast mentioned that I think is important. Knowing when to get professional help.
Yes. Sometimes those lifestyle changes aren't enough. If you've tried everything and you're still struggling, it's worth talking to a doctor. There could be an underlying sleep disorder, like insomnia or sleep apnea.
The podcast talked about a sleep study as a way to diagnose those things. What exactly is that?
So basically, they monitor your brain waves, your heart rate, your breathing, all that stuff, while you sleep in a lab. It's like getting a full report on your sleep so they can figure out what's going on.
So if you're feeling stuck, don't be afraid to reach out to a doctor. They can really help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive so far. We've talked about sleep schedules, routines, our sleep environment, and even what we eat and drink. And we're just getting started. What are your main takeaways so far?
For me, it's realizing that good sleep is something we actively create. It's not just about waiting for it to happen. It's about making choices that support it. And understanding the why behind these tips can really help us make lasting changes. It's not about following rules blindly. It's about working with our bodies.
I love that. It makes me feel more in control. Before we move on to the next part, let's leave our listeners with a question. Think about your own bedtime routine. What's one small change you could make tonight to start improving your sleep? Keep that in mind as we continue our exploration in the next part.
Great question. Looking forward to diving in deeper. It's like we're gardeners, right? Like tending to our sleep.
I love that analogy, giving it the right conditions to flourish.
Exactly. But I'm curious, how does all this actually work in our bodies? We talked about melatonin, but what else is going on?
Yeah, let's get nerdy for a minute.
Okay, so remember those relaxing bedtime routines? Well, when you do those calming things, like reading or taking a bath, it actually lowers your cortisol levels.
Cortisol, that's the stress hormone, right?
Yep. It keeps us alert, but too much of it at night makes it hard to sleep.
So it's not just about feeling relaxed, it's like a chemical change in our bodies.
Exactly. As cortisol goes down, other things start to kick in, like melatonin, that sleep hormone. It's produced in our brains, and darkness triggers it.
So that's why dimming the lights and putting away the screens is so important. It's like a signal. Time for melatonin.
Exactly. And there's another key player, adenosine. It builds up in our brains all day. The longer we're awake, the more adenosine, the sleepier we get.
Oh, so that's why I can barely function by 10:00 p.m.,
Well,
but after a nap at like 4:00, I'm wired.
Exactly. It's like your sleep pressure gauge. And caffeine actually blocks adenosine, so that's why coffee can trick you for a bit.
Sneaky caffeine. But what happens to adenosine when we sleep?
It gets cleared out, like hitting the reset button.
So that's why we feel refreshed after a good night's sleep.
Right. It's all connected.
So we're talking about this whole system of hormones and stuff, all working together to regulate our sleep. And with good sleep hygiene, we're actually working with our bodies, not against them.
Exactly. Supporting those natural rhythms.
I love that. It's empowering. But what about when things just feel off? Like even with a good routine and a perfect sleep environment, sometimes I can't shut my brain off. Any advice for those racing thoughts?
Oh, yeah, that's a common one. Sometimes stress and stuff just takes over, so it's good to have some extra tools.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of tools?
Mindfulness meditation can be really helpful. It's about focusing on your breath and just noticing your thoughts without judgment. Not about clearing your mind, just creating space around those thoughts.
I've tried mindfulness for stress, but never thought about it for sleep. How does it help?
Well, by focusing on your breath in the present moment, you're shifting your attention away from those worries, gently guiding your mind to a more peaceful state.
So instead of fighting those thoughts, you're just letting them be.
Exactly. And there are even guided meditations specifically for sleep. They use calming sounds and stuff.
Cool. I'll have to check those out. What about when you wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall back asleep? That's so frustrating.
Yeah, the key is not to get frustrated, because that makes it worse. If you're awake for more than 20 minutes or so, get out of bed and do something relaxing until you feel tired again.
Really? So don't just lie there stressing about it.
Right. Read a book, listen to music, just sit quietly. Just avoid screens. That blue light will keep you up.
Okay, so break the cycle. Makes sense.
Exactly. Create a calm environment.
This is great. I'm starting to see sleep hygiene as more of a toolkit, not just rules, but like strategies for different situations. We've covered so much, from the basics to the science, and even some tips for common problems. What stands out to you as the most important thing so far?
I think it's realizing that good sleep is an active process. It's not just something that happens. We have to work for it, create it, and take care of any problems that are getting in the way.
I love that. It's encouraging. But it also makes me wonder, if sleep is so important, why do we neglect it so much? Why is it so easy to sacrifice sleep for work or, just staying up late? We'll explore that in the last part of our deep dive. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back, and I'm still kind of stuck on this question of why do we neglect sleep so much? It's so important for us, but we treat it like it's optional.
Yeah, it's weird, right? We know we need it to function, but then we're all about being busy and productive all the time, even if it means less sleep.
It's like we think we're losing out if we're not doing something every second of the day, but the truth is that kind of thinking can really hurt us.
For sure.
We talked about how important sleep is for our physical and mental health. What happens when we don't get enough? Like, really paint us a picture of what happens when we're constantly sleep deprived.
Okay, so imagine your brain is trying to run a marathon, but it has no fuel, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens when we don't sleep enough. Our brains can't focus, our memory gets all fuzzy, it's harder to make decisions. Like, our brain is in a fog.
Ugh, yeah. I feel so spacey when I haven't slept well, like I can't think straight.
Exactly. And it's not just our brains either. Our emotions are all over the place, too. We get more irritable, easier to upset, like we have a shorter fuse. And that can even lead to more serious problems like anxiety or depression.
Wow, so it's more than just feeling grumpy, it's like a deeper impact.
Definitely.
And we can't forget about the physical effects either. Didn't the Health Buzz podcast mention some health risks from not sleeping enough?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch, actually. Heart problems, weight gain, diabetes, even some types of cancer are more likely when we don't sleep enough.
Seriously,
Yeah.
that's scary. It's like we're setting ourselves up for health issues down the road, all because we wanted to stay up late.
It really puts things in perspective, right?
Yeah, we need to change the way we think about sleep. It's not a luxury. It's like essential for our health.
Exactly. Just like eating healthy and exercising.
So we've learned so much in this deep dive, from the practical tips to the science to like the bigger picture of why sleep matters so much.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. So as we wrap up, what's your final thought for our listeners? Something to take away as they try to improve their sleep.
Just make sleep a priority. Treat it like you would any other part of your health. Create a good sleep environment, those good habits we talked about, and don't be afraid to ask for help from a doctor if you need it.
That's such great advice. Sleep is possible, and the benefits are amazing. Like, you're investing in your well-being.
Absolutely.
And remember, everyone, better sleep is a journey. Start small, find what works for you, and be kind to yourself along the way.
Sweet dreams, everyone.
Sleep well.